table, only his legs visible beneath the drawn curtain as he coordinated the attack. The young officer conversed simultaneously over separate phone circuits with the sonar station and the men manning the depth charge racks and throwers on the main deck. "Release depth charges," Kawaguchi commanded with vigor. Handing the clipboard back to the radio man, Ando crossed the port bridge wing and looked aft in time to see another cluster of depth charges roll off the racks, plunking into the ocean beyond the destroyer's stern. Ando shifted his gaze to the Hamakaze's beam, where in the darkness, 200 meters away, the Hamakaze's consort, sub-chaser number 24, struggled to keep station with the swift destroyer. White splashes appeared astern of the sub-chaser as it followed the lead of its companion, releasing its own depth charges to complete the pattern. Again the rumble in the night. Silvery bubbles broached the surface under the dim light of the moon. It was nearly impossible to tell if they were followed by a stream of entrained oil and debris, a sure indication that one of the 160-kilogram charges had found its mark. It had been nearly 4 hours since the unidentified submerged anomaly had first been detected by the series of magnetic loops and hydrophones strung along the floor of the strait, alerting the coordinating shore authority to the intruder. Soon after, a myriad of small motor launches equipped with simple sonar sets had drifted along, picking it up too. Pairs of escorts had been vectored onto the suspicious contact, dropping charges at various depths, seamlessly handing off the contact to the next pair. Finally, the contact had been turned over to the Hamakaze and the number 24 to localize, track, and prosecute. The two warships had dropped nearly 5 dozen charges between them, both ships having recently been modified to hold a much larger arsenal of anti-submarine weaponry. Ando, as the senior officer afloat, was in overall command, but he preferred to focus on the larger picture, delegating the subtler points of the attack to Kawaguchi. The young lieutenant had been darting back and forth between the plot table and the bridge-mounted sonar-bearing repeater, and often to the signalman, on the semaphore lamps, to communicate his plans to number 24. "Request slower speed, Captain," Kawaguchi said, almost impatiently, suddenly standing before Ando. "Recommend new course, 050. "Very well," Ando replied, nodding to the helmsman. "1/3 speed, right standard helm. Steady 050. Before the order was rung up, Kawaguchi had already moved back to the sonar repeater, watching and waiting for the operators in the sonar room to regain the submerged contact once the effects of the explosions and the Hamakaze's own screw noise had diminished. Ando observed Kawaguchi eagerly awaiting new information. The young lieutenant's enthusiasm for finding and destroying the enemy was more intense than any other member of the crew. His outward display of emotion bordered on unprofessional, but Ando understood its source. Sometimes Ando wished that he too could feel the zest that Kawaguchi did, that he could find satisfaction in the doldrums of guarding a waterway so far from the main theaters of the war, day after day dropping depth charges on contacts that often proved to be nothing more than migrating whales. This, indeed, was not the kind of duty Ando had envisioned when he had taken command of the Hamakaze almost 2 years ago. The Hamakaze was a Kagero-class destroyer, 2,500 tons, over 100 meters long, fast and deadly, and built to accompany Japan's great battle fleets as they ranged across the Pacific. Her main armament consisted of 3 shrapnel-proof gun turrets, 1 forward, 2 aft, each containing twin-mounted 127mm 50-caliber naval guns capable of throwing 23-kilogram high-explosive or armor-piercing shells over 18 kilometers away, with an additional sprinkling of 25mm anti-aircraft guns and 2 shrapnel-proof torpedo mounts, each capable of firing 4 torpedoes tipped with 500-kilogram warheads. She could take on almost anything the enemy could send at her. Ever since his days at Etajima, Ando had dreamed of commanding such a ship. He had never been interested in the massive, overloaded battleships or cruisers, always tethered to the carrier task forces and destined to serve as flagships from time to time, with all the extensive scrutiny that entailed. Ando's heart had always been set on destroyers, lightweight, agile, and often independent speedboats that packed a serious punch. The day he had taken command of the Hamakaze had been the happiest of his life. At 32 years old, he had reached the epitome of his naval career and envisioned leading his quick ship and its proficient crew through desperate surface battles against the American fleet. Never would he have predicted that the Hamakaze would essentially become a guard vessel, her guns and torpedoes silent and unused, while her sonar and depth charge racks saw overemployment. For several months